Hi, welcome to Main Pod Girl. This is a podcast made by Popheads for Popheads. Throughout this series, we'll be diving into all different kinds of pop culture topics with some of our favorite artists and music commentators. I'm your host, pop rock artist and songwriter AJ Marks. This episode is something I've wanted to do for such a long time. Today, I have with me three incredible songwriters. They've all carved out their own little corners in pop music, and in this episode, we'll be doing a roundtable on what it's like to be a hit songwriter, as well as some of their work under their own artist projects. Let's introduce them one by one. First up, we have a songwriter who was kind of coincidentally written with plenty of previous Main Pod Girls we've had on the show, including Zara Larsson, Lauren Gray, Griff, Gail, Amy Allen, you name it. Her song Without Me by Halsey went #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, followed by her success with co-writing Boyfriend by Dove Cameron. She has other credits with Demi Lovato, Justin Bieber, and the Jonas Brothers, but she's also an artist in her own right, and her sophomore album, The Girl Has a Dream, is out now. She's now a Main Pod Girl herself. It's Delacey.
Yay!
And next up, we have someone who has written for all of the Popheads favorites, including Caroline Polachek, Dua Lipa, Danielle Harrell, Ali X, and Tovlo, as well as worked extensively with Rae Jepsen on her album Emotion. He's also co-written Excess by Rina Sawayama and Mine by Phoebe Ryan, and a personal fave, Miss You a Little by Marlena. Please welcome Nate Campany. And that's not all, because our final songwriter is a master of the weird and wonderful. He's a collaborator of Kesha, Pink, and years. His credits span the Backstreet Boys, Adam Lambert, Ellie Goulding, DNCE, and Tori Kelly, our girl. He also has his own successful artist project and just released his new EP, Chapter of Me. It's the one and only Wrabel.
Hello.
Woo! Welcome to the show, guys. This is so incredible. I love having everyone all in one place.
Thank you for having us.
Happy family.
I have so much to talk about, so let's dive straight in. I have a bunch of roundtable questions, and I have personal questions that I'll be talking to you guys about. So this podcast is kind of just going to be all over the place. But I want to start off with what's one thing, whether it's small, whether it's in the production or the songwriting or telling someone to do a riff, like what's one thing in one of your biggest hits that was specifically like your idea and you're so glad it made it to the final product? Wrabel, let's start with you.
I did a song with James Bay on the last album called Leap. The song is called One Life. And we had just been talking. I love when a song comes from, like, I don't really know how to write anything that's not a true story, which is very limiting. I've learned to, like, embrace that and sort of just be like, just do that. Someone's like, we need the single. I'm like, call my friend. But we're writing this song and they were engaged and we were just talking about this. And it was this song. It's like, I've only got one life and I want you in it. And it's just this, the sense of like, if I get to do this one time, like, fuck, I want to do this with you. What else am I going to do? And so in the second verse, I was like, I really wanted to say, do you want to marry me? It was this sort of fantasy about this house. They had just toured this like beautiful house and they were thinking getting it, but it was maybe, you know, it's big and it's overwhelming, whatever. And so I was really like, I really want to say, do you want to marry me? Like if that's true, it's so rare that that's true, that you're working with someone who's literally like going through that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like it's going to be such a nice window. And not that it wasn't like welcomed into the room or the song, but I think it felt maybe too on the nose or too cliche, which two things I'm never scared of. I was just so stoked and I was like giddy that we landed on it. And it was one of those lines that was like on the chopping block for the 3 years in between when we wrote the song and when it came out. And so I was really stoked that it stayed in there, because when I listen to it, it's still like my favorite. I just think it's like this super personal, super real, super literal, on the nose, cliche moment.
Yeah.
But when those moments hit true, for me, there's maybe nothing better in a song than when like a cliche rings so true. And so that for me, I was like really stoked. Because I also I've written songs with artists where we write the song and then like, I'm like obsessed with it, crying in my car, whatever. And then they're like, oh, it's too personal. I'll never put this out. And I'm like,
yeah, I hate that.
Like, why? What do you mean it's too, I've written one song in my life for myself that I consider too personal. and no one will ever hear it. And that's done, and it's in a casket, and it's buried, and it's thrown out to sea, and it'll never be spoken of. It's when it's going to fuck with your actual life.
Yeah. It can actually like mess up your relationships or something. Yeah.
But it's a hard line because at the same time, I do think that when you share right up to that line, or maybe even right on the line, that it really resonates with people when it's done with good intention. But sometimes, I mean, the road to hell is paved. But anyhow, I think the first thing that comes to mind, that's my favorite, because it was just this thing that like, I felt like, not that I had to fight for it, but I had to kind of do a little PowerPoint presentation to get everyone like, this is a good idea.
I love that. You're passionate about it. What about Nate? Do you have a story for us?
During the pandemic, one of the highlights of the last like couple of years was I took some edibles and I watched the Ken Burns country music documentary, just like out of my mind. And I knew I had a session coming up with Noah Cyrus and LP. And after watching that segment, just kind of woke up the next morning a little bit foggy and sat at my piano and did this riff on the piano. And I usually don't like pocket musical ideas to take into sessions. Sometimes melodies, a lot of times like lyrics or titles, but like musical starts, chords and stuff, not really. But I just found this thing after that night, and I was like, oh, this would be sick to take in. I took it in and everyone loved it, and then we wrote a song around it.
Oh my God, wait, is that I Just Want to Love Her?
Yeah, that piano.
Yes, I love that song. I know exactly. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, nice. I love that.
Yeah, that came after like a very late night, just like, whoa. The Dolly Parton episode of that series is so incredible.
I never watched that.
I'm going to have to watch it after this. I love this podcast because people just give me the best recommendations. Wrabel, so I want to talk a little bit more about that personal songwriting. I was listening to Chapter of Me, and when you write these songs, do you write with the intention of them hearing it and you're writing directly to them? Or are you writing it as something you would say if they ever listen to it, but it's a song first? It's first and foremost for a listener.
Interesting. I think if I'm writing something that is targeted at someone, this is what I want to say to you. That's something that I didn't really necessarily start doing that until, well, I guess it was a billion years ago now when I made my first imaginary record. That finally came out as These Words Are All For You. The last song on that record is called Love Is Not a Simple Thing to Lose. And it came from a place of like my first breakup, like the Romeo and Romeo, we were kicked out of church.
Oh, wow.
It was this honestly traumatic experience. And so.
Oh, that sounds very traumatizing.
It was, I'm in a better place. And it was the last song for the album. And so I went in that day and I was like, I have to say every single thing that I want to say to this person because we do not speak. And I have to literally say everything. This is not for anyone except for him. I want him to hear this as the let go. And so I think that sort of changed the way that I wrote things like that, because it then did open that thing up of like, wow, if you can do that, then do that. But yeah, I try to write small, like it's a conversation, or like it is that thing of like, you have to say what you want to say and you have to fill in all the gaps, because once this song comes out, there's no editing. And if it's to a real person, and fully realizing that a real person's going to hear this, I want to be honest, but I do try to remember that like, if a song is about a real person, it's about a real person. And that's crazy.
It's that level of responsibility that you have to take into account it's like the job and your personal life conflict sometimes. I have a question for Delacey. I just wanted to touch a little bit on, I've spoken about this with Zara Larsson herself, but apparently Ruin My Life, which is one of your biggest hits, was originally meant to be more intense and about like this problematic relationship. And how did you feel about it being reworked before it was released?
Oh, I was happy about it. Like, it's funny because I remember we were on a phone call, like on the phone with the people who wrote it. it was like me and Michael Pollack and Zara and Monsters, I think. And she was discussing like how she felt like the verses were problematic, which they were kind of like, they were borderline like abusive, like about an abusive relationship, which I was like, haven't we, I still remember this phone call. I was like, haven't we all been in that relationship though? Like, haven't we all? And they were like, no, just you, Delacey.
What? They hung you out to dry like that?
It's like, fair enough.
Damn.
But it was fine. I mean, I feel like it did reach more people, like not being so intense. There was a lyric like punching your fist through the wall or
yeah,
something.
that's the one I remember being in some like story or something. Was it nice to kind of like write that the way that it was originally and then later rework it for commercial purpose? Because then you get to like say everything you want to say and then it doesn't have to fuck up your bag, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, when you're writing for pitch, at least me, which is maybe why I barely get any placements, but
I have a playlist to show that is a lie. But anyway, continue.
Oh, well, but if you see the amount I've written compared to what's come out, when I'm writing for pitch, I should say, I try to just say what I want to say. Like, I mean, of course, there's people in the room that are keeping us in check or like have like ideas to like, but let's not say that in case it doesn't reach this person, whatever. But I mean, it's nice to just write what you want. It can always be changed later. I mean, that's happened in so many of my songs. And that's a beautiful thing too. Like you said, it's like, we got to express ourselves that day in whatever way. And then, you know, someone who wants to make it a little more personal or like make it fit them, they can tweak it. And I'm totally okay with that. Cause then it's we're in the room kind of, you know what I mean?
I think that's like one of the dope things about Delacey as a writer. I'm just going to brag about her for a second.
Oh, no.
And why I think her songs as an artist are so special, but also like the songs that other artists use are so special is because she actually does just write what's in her heart and in her chest and in her mind. And like, there's no sort of like filler days when you write with Delacey. And I honestly, I think that's,
I hate you.
the songs that you've had releases with other artists, you can hear, you know, like, okay, I know what mood Delacey was in. And your artist project is the same. It's just so extremely strong because it's so vulnerable. It's really, really cool.
Thank you, Nate. I love you.
That brings me to another question that I have just for everyone. What are the like patterns or quirks that you have that you find just over time, like listening through your discography, you're like, yep, that kind of bleeds into the music I write for other people as well?
I say too many bad words.
The only thing that comes to my mind is I don't work with a ton of, I'm like scared of people a lot, but some people I work with a lot, like the producers. I can think of like 3 producers that make fun of me every time, especially if we're in like with an artist where like either we're cutting a song or we're writing it with the artist and they're cutting the song, where I like insert myself, and I don't do it in like a ego-y way, but my vocal is always on there. Cause I'm always like, oh, I hear this background part. And then I go in the booth to do like one background part, and then I'm in there for an hour filling out the whole.
Cause you love the vocal stacks. You love the vocal stacks.
But a lot of times like producers make fun of me, but they'll be like joking to the artist like, oh, you didn't know it's a duet now.
Wait, I actually have a question about the song Resentment. I have a completely different relationship with the song now, even though it's been one of my favorite Kesha songs for so long. It must have been like so cathartic to pour your heart out like that. What was that session like?
Maddie and Jamie may be pissed, but I wrote the chorus in my shower. Sent a voice note to them of that chorus, and I was like, this feels like an us idea. It was really fast and really sad. Like fast as in like how quickly it came to you? Yeah, and how once we had the chorus, how quickly the rest kind of filled in. And then when Kesha came in, really making it her own, and I didn't even know who was going to feature on it until like it was kind of almost ready to come out. Wow. And then so to get to hear like Brian Wilson like singing like an angel, I was just like, what the fuck? It's kind of an all-star lineup. And then I was last. She was like, will you sing on it too? And I was like, well, yeah, but like, what am I like, how do you go in the studio and sing over Kesha, Sturgill Simpson, and Brian Wilson? I was great. Like, I kept being like, ooh, no. Ooh. Like, what am I supposed to do? Just in case there's songwriters listening that are like they're having meetings and everyone's saying no. I played that song for someone and I'm like, I don't think everything that I write is amazing, but I do think that when I'm part of something that feels really special, like spectacular, that's one of my songs that I'm the most proud of being a part of for my whole life. And I played it for someone and they're like, and I'm like, And it was to try to get into country. I've been trying to get into country. It's a really hard world to get into.
So hard to get into that.
They have those gates up high.
Yeah.
In hopes of getting into country world, it felt like a song that could kind of do that. It's a, real story. Yeah. And they were like, And I got this list of things that a country song should have in it. Mm-hmm. So then the final result, having Kesha, Brian Wilson, Sturgill Simpson, who's country royalty.
Yeah.
The most cathartic thing.
Everyone wanted to be on it.
Somehow side-doored this thing that I had been craving.
Don't you find that that's one of the most sort of frustrating things about what we do is you can feel like you've written the dopest thing ever, and there's 5, 6, 7 gatekeepers that it has to get through, all with different tastes, all with different.
And I don't trust most of the gatekeepers. Their ears are usually bad.
I love that story, Wrabel, because that's not an uncommon, it's just crazy how many songs get slept on, or, they weren't even going to put it on the record. And,
totally.
Stuff like that. It is pretty frustrating to every day have to, wake up with amnesia as a songwriter. And, at the end of the session, we get texts from our publishers, our managers, and they go, how was it? Did you write a hit? And it's well, I don't know.
Because do we ever know?
Yeah. It's I love the song.
I always do. Yeah.
But it's you almost have to write it, forget it, and then wake up the next morning and do it all again. I love that you connected with it and knew that it was going to happen.
I also will say I don't know anyone in the music industry. I don't know the gatekeepers. I don't speak to them. And I think just even from my own bitterness and resentment, LOL, maybe the one conversation that I've ever had with an A&R about a song was this song that I thought was a slam dunk for this artist. And I was like, oh my God, we did this thing. Oh my God, how did we do that? And then the A&R called and they were like, so that one line that says go fuck yourself, maybe that could just be not that hard. And I'm like, we never say go fuck yourself. What line are you talking about? I'm like, oh, maybe it's just the vibe of go fuck yourself. And I was like, what is the vibe of go fuck yourself? Are you talking about a different song? It felt like they were talking to me about a different song.
Oh, no.
And so I remember hanging up that phone call and just being like, I'm never going to do this again. Someone comes back and can you change this and change this and change this and change this? I'm like, no.
That means you don't like the song.
You can go find a different song that's similar.
That's the thing is it's then just you don't like the song, go find another song then.
Right. So I've tried to just not even know who anyone is and have their phone numbers because it creates too much anxiety for me. I mean, clearly I have a lot of resentment towards a lot of things. But
we all do, don't worry.
The gatekeeping thing does freak me out. And I do feel like it's something that every songwriter has in common of sitting down and playing something that makes you cry. Listen to this. This is glorious. And someone is listening and they're pick up the phone halfway through or they don't even listen. I mean, I'm sober for the second time over. And I'd be lying if I said that shit like that had nothing to do with me getting fucking blasted. Because I'm what? You're writing these songs and throwing them against a brick wall sometimes.
Definitely. Yeah, it feels like we do that all the time.
Also, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Excess by Rina Sawayama with Nate because that is just it was voted the #1 song of 2020 by Popheads in our annual vote, and it's just such an amazing song. It means so much to the subreddit. Could you walk us through the inception of that song?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I have to go on the record and say that I am obsessed with Popheads. I've been following Popheads for so long, and it's I'm always nervous. Whenever I know I have a release coming out with an artist, it's oh no, I'm scared to see if they're gonna like it or not. But I'm so psyched that that song went off. I mean, honestly, the genius of that song is Rina, Like, she's unbelievable. I wrote that song with Rina and with my main collaborator, Kyle Shearer, and another part of our little squad, guy named Chris Lyon. And I remember it was kind of like late in the project, like she and Clarence had been doing quite a bit of stuff. And she was in LA, asked to work, and played us kind of just some vibes of what she was on. Mm-hmm. She was kind of like, you know, referencing a lot of NERD stuff and sort of like that early aughts pop kind of stuff. I mean, I think you can hear it. It kind of sounds like Britney meets, you know, NERD or whatever. But she was like, oh, I want like a guitar riff. And Kyle just kind of goes like, dun, 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 dun. And she's like, yes, like exactly that. And we just kind of wrote the song around it. It took like a bunch of different twists and turns. I mean, all the lyrics, like she's so good with her vision as an artist, what she wants to do. I can't speak highly enough about how creative she is and how adventurous and open she is in the studio. Like, she's really just so excited by, you know, chasing different ideas. There was like an alternate version of the melody for the chorus. Oh, you know, it's like, give me just a little bit more. And so like there was originally a melody that we were trying that like played with the major minor thing of the chords. And I was like, it's so good. And Rina was like, I don't know, it's just too on the nose. Like, let's just make it not that. And she like fought really hard for the melody that's there. And it's just one note different.
Was that way the original way? And then you made it what it is now, or?
It was kind of like we were writing the chorus melodies and then we kept doing it in different ways. Like she was doing it the way it is. Okay, I was doing it one note different.
It's like you both hear it differently. Yeah.
Yes. I actually, some of the best melodies I feel, or some of the best lyrics too, come from misunderstanding what someone's saying. So I'll sing a melody over something and then someone else will sing it later at some other point. And I'm like, oh, well, that's not what I did, but I like that more.
But it's also like, there's something really cool about that in collaboration and cross-pollination, where it's like, oh, you're saying that word completely different than I would ever say it. Or you're singing that melody in a way that I just would never have thought of. Yeah. And it's that sort of like reflection, that back and forth that happens in rooms where stuff starts and then morphs a little bit and kind of morphs again. It's really beautiful. But XS is, I mean, Rina. I can't tell the world enough that Rina is an absolute star and legend.
I love to hear that. And then also I want to touch on how you discovered the subreddit and your relationship with Popheads. I know that you anticipate reading about your songs and stuff.
Well, I can't remember the first time I came across Popheads, but there was like an old forum about a lot of the like Swedish pop stuff, the Scandi pop stuff. And I think there was some like crossover between the two forums. But I remember specifically because like when we were writing Emotion and working on all that record, you know, it was like the same era that like the Tove Lo song had happened, and Popheads like loves her. She's a legend as well. But it was kind of like once the Carly stuff became a Pophead thing, I was like, oh man, like it seems like a lot of the releases I will work on are like
very Popheads core.
Yeah, Popheads adjacent. And so now I kind of will check and I'm kind of like, uh-oh, are they going to eat?
They changed their tune. Emotion is considered by a lot of them like the pop Bible. And it was what the whole subreddit was created around. I know the person who made it, and he was just like talking about how it all started. He wanted to post on Indie Heads. There is no like, it's not hip hop heads. And he was like, I'll just make a Pop Heads just so I can post about Emotion because I love it so much. And it's just wild that now like 1.4 million people are now tuned into this, and they all like adore, you know, not only that album, but a lot of the work that you three have put out into the world. And that's just, it's so wild that that's the reason that I'm talking to you guys now today. So
it is such a cool forum. It really is.
I'm glad you think that. Yeah. Or I'm glad you know that. It is a cool forum. It's not just an opinion.
It's a fact.
I love that.
Question for Delacey. With the song Man on the Moon, I get huge Lana Del Rey vibes from that song, and I'm obsessed with like the imagery. Like you have like claw marks on your back, so you'll stay here, and you have up and away in your universe, and I'm just the girl that you keep on earth. Oh, that line gives me chills. I love that you're not afraid to fully sink your teeth into a metaphor. And with this song, I'm wondering how you struck that balance between describing what was happening metaphorically and what was happening physically, so people could follow, because it's so easy to follow the story, but also follow the metaphor at the same time.
Oh, thank you for saying that. That's good that you think it was so easy, because I feel like that is something I struggled with when I wrote it.
You carried the burden, so the listener didn't have to.
I was like struggling with, I remember even I had different verses originally to that song, and they were a little bit more like imagery of space. I think I'm kind of forgetting now, but like, you know, I started that song like on the piano, just like I wrote the hook first, and I just kind of sang it out, and the chorus came really quickly to me, actually. I mean, I was like really emotional that day, so that's probably why. But I like rewrote those verses like a ton of times. So it's funny, I don't remember what they were obviously exactly, but it was more like I put like more of the theme inside the verses, and I ended up being like, I don't need to over explain it and not feels like forced. And I think it was honestly, I was struggling with it so much that I was going to not even finish the song. I was like, whatever, this just isn't, I can't finish the song. And like 5 months later, like brought it to my main collaborator, Idas Mashlani, and like he, you know, just saw a way into it like right away, and like, you know, helped me finish the whole thing. But like I really lost perspective on that song. So it's cool that you say that it's really easy to follow it, because I struggled. But that is like one of my favorite songs I've ever written, and it's like one of the most important to me. So it's really cool that you mentioned it.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that it ended up the way that it did. I would love to get everyone's take on a few current songwriting trends. First of all, like, I love this concept of introducing a different melody for the second verse, because it keeps it fresh, and it's been embraced relatively recently, I would say. Like,
I think for me, that trend stems from sort of like the shattering of this former trend. There was like, you know, especially in like the pop, like our sort of peer group, I feel like there was like this whole like, oh, the symmetry, the quote unquote math.
The Swedish math.
Yeah. And I feel like that like, oh, fuck it, let's like make the second verse a different melody, came from like a really sort of like throwing off that old sort of system in a cool way.
Yeah.
So like, I'm super excited whenever someone's like, this second verse, we could add some more energy or whatever. But I don't look at it as like, okay, second verse needs to be a different.
Yeah. At least with me, like if something comes to me and I'm like, okay, that's something I also want to do, I'm like, maybe I'll throw that in there. And I can't tell whether it like adds pressure to come up with more melodies, or if it alleviates the pressure of each verse melody having to be like so perfect.
I always like a second verse that starts the same, and then in the second half it like gets really rhythmic or gets really beautiful, or like just has a bit of a scene change, and then skip the pre.
No bridge. Never.
No bridge.
What do you guys think about not having bridges?
I like bridges.
I think bridges are coming back.
I'm always like, I have more to say. Let's write another. We can save that in the bridge.
I appreciate that. My usual argument is, if it's for pitch, I'm like, no bridge. Like they're gonna, you know, come on and take 5, 10, 15% anyhow.
Leave a space for them to write.
Leave a space for them to do the 5%, 10%, whatever. But I do think, just like what you just said, is I feel when there's a bridge, I feel like a bridge needs to be warranted. I never like to have a bridge that's just like the same, like saying the same thing but different, which I feel like, I mean, I've done that a bajillion times. But when I love a bridge, it's when I hear the bridge and it's a realization, or it's a moment of like everything crumbles down and it's you naked on the floor, or it's like the feeling, or it's the, I just realized that I'm fine now, or I realize I'll never be fine now, or I just met someone else just now in the bridge. I love when those moments, when the bridge feels like an oh fuck, like whether it's a good oh fuck or a bad oh fuck, when it's really warranted of like, now it's going to get super dreamy because now it's like this. when there's a big scene change, it's 5 p.m. and everything feels awesome. And someone's like, should we have a bridge? And I'm like, no, we should not have a bridge. We should end the song after the second chorus. And then we would send it to all of the gatekeepers that won't like it.
We also waste, like, I mean, this is a horrible way to put it, but we kind of waste like almost every day that we're alive in a studio. If you think about statistically how many of these songs come out, if you look at it like that, so we don't need to spend any more time writing something that's like not actually detrimental to a song getting placed, you know?
But I really like what you said, Delacey, of like, when there is that thing of like, hold on, I'm not done. That's the best fucking bridge.
Yeah, it's intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can contextualize like the last chorus in a different way. Or if it's just like a fucking jam, like sometimes you just want it to be like this moment to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I personally hate bridges.
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Why? Why do you hate them? Tell us. You can tell us why.
What did a bridge ever do to you?
Back when I was living in New York, and people would talk about bridges, I'd be like, the only bridge I need is the Brooklyn Bridge. It's like, for me, bridges just, and maybe this is a product of what we're talking about, they usually just feel forced. 99% of the time, they just feel like, oh, we're expected to write this extra section, and here's a extra section, with different chords because it's a bridge. And it just feels like a lot of the choices are not...
Yeah, it can feel contrived, like we needed to have this part.
I mean, any of my friends will be like, yeah, we've had drunken Nates where Nate just yelled at us about bridges.
I love it.
That's great.
But my question I always ask to people who are like, no, you need bridges, they're amazing, as I go, what's your favorite bridge? And no one can ever think of a bridge or sing one. And it's like... Well,
I couldn't answer what's my favorite chorus right now either if you asked me that.
Oh, my favorite bridge, I'd be like, it's this, it's my song, and...
Same, I'd be like, I got a bridge I like.
No, but there's like, I referenced the section in Teenage Dream, where it's like, you put your hand on me and your skin. It's like, that's not technically a bridge. We're like vamping on the same chords.
Well, that's a bridge.
Does that have a bridge, that song? Or is it just the post-chorus?
Oh, see, there we go. That's what I'm saying.
You could probably argue.
I would consider that a post-chorus.
My brain is gonna break.
And it's just words. It's just semantics.
Sometimes I feel like bridges are like this tradition from like old sort of standard style songs where you would have like an A section that was both a verse and a refrain, like a chorus, the title of the song, the line that everyone sings. You would have an A section, repeatable A section, and the beat was like a bridge between getting back to the last A section. But like in a verse pre-chorus, verse pre-chorus, yeah, bridges can be awesome. I mean, like Dan Nigro did it great in Driver's License. Like that was a bridge.
Yeah.
And I hate to admit it because Dan and I have had this conversation so many times. He crushed that bridge. Like that bridge felt like a full scene change. And it felt like almost like the pinnacle moment of the song. Anyways, we should move. I'll sit here and talk about bridges.
Oh, I would love to hear this. But, I'll DM you about bridges. I would love more takes. But moving on, I was going to say another like songwriting trend, I guess, really recently is the interpolation and sample trend that's seemingly very controversial because everyone's like, oh, it's all late 90s, early 2000s, which I'm like, I love. So I'm not complaining. But what's everyone's take on that? Examples are like Nicki Minaj, Super Freaky Girl, BB Rexa and David Guetta, I'm Good, Metro Boomin, The Weeknd and 21 Savage, Creepin'.
The new Kim Petras song does it.
It feels really frequent, yeah. I've done it before. It's not something I like strive to do all the time, but it's fun to do sometimes. I don't know.
I'm tempted to plead the fifth. I think it can be done in a really fun, interesting way.
Yeah.
And I think it can also be the absolute lowest hanging fruit. And as a listener, I think you can tell the difference. I think there is a really cool way of being like, I fucking love this song. Wouldn't it be cool to do a flip like this? And then there are factories, literal buildings and camps that are factories of that.
That are like, this was a hit before, so.
That I think is the lowest common denominator, lowest hanging fruit that I actually disdain and judge it.
So you didn't plead the fifth, really?
There was the the Weeknd Metro Boomin 21 Savage song where they basically just covered I Don't Want to Know by Mario Winans. And that one shocked me because I've been saying for so long that is such a interpolatable song. I actually worked on it with my producer and I was like, this song, I have like said this for years. I'm like, this song needs to be interpolated. Like it has this incredible, like indestructible melody. And then we worked on it and we made the song. And then a couple days later, I realized that The Weeknd already did it. And it was literally number 3 in the charts. I just never heard it before. Oh, I waited too long on that.
What's crazy about that though is I Don't Want to Know. The Mario Winans song is an interpretation of a Fuji song called Ready or Not, which is an interpolation of an Enya song.
Oh my God.
From the 80s.
Yes. Yeah.
What Enya song?
It's like a Gaelic title.
Enya's actually credited on the Mario Winans song because of that.
That's so funny.
So Enya and Diddy technically have a collab. Who is on your songwriting bucket list? Anyone on this podcast can answer, but just curious if there's anyone that you're like, one day we will have a song.
I really wish I could write a song with Stevie Nicks one day.
Ooh, yes. It's honestly, it's really not impossible.
I know, right? Like,
she's really coming back. That Fleetwood Mac song blew up. She's a song with BB Rexa now. Like,
I'm going to go Imogen Heap.
Oh, yeah, that would be.
My friend's her engineer.
Delacey's on my bucket list.
Shut up.
Wait, have you guys not written together?
Yes, we have.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm getting the vibe that you guys, it's not been all 3 of you together in a room, right?
No, I've actually never even written with Wrabel, right? We've never written together.
Wait, really? Oh. Okay, well, I actually totally, just by the banter back and forth, I would have assumed that you guys have written together.
Well, like, we know each other. I mean, it's a small world, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, never. We have to.
Yeah.
I think I should put it forward to the Popheads and see who they think I should be on my...
Ooh. Actually, wait. That's a really good idea.
They can look at all the stuff that I'm on and then pick who I try and chase after. I mean, obviously, it's like, oh, I want to work with Rihanna and Rosalia and Post Malone and The Weeknd. There's like a couple artists that I just like, there's a couple artists that I'm obsessed with. One is like this songwriter from Veracruz, Mexico. Her name's Natalia Lafourcade, and I would love to write a song with her.
You would crush it.
Do you guys ever slide into DMs?
No.
Oh, absolutely.
Very different answers.
There have been a bunch of sessions that have happened for me that way with like artists that I'm just obsessed with. And I'm like, hey, you are clearly crushing and don't need any help from me. But if you ever want to like hang out and work on music, and then like it's happening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was just curious.
Okay, guys, I'll DM Stevie Nicks right now.
You should. Wait, can we all watch you DM Stevie Nicks right now?
It's gonna work.
I've DM'd Fergie on this podcast before.
Yeah.
I was talked into it, yeah. Also, real quick, another question. If you guys can answer this, what was the cut that got away? What was the song that never ended up getting released, but got cut, but never ended up getting released, and you really wish that the world ended up hearing it?
We wish that the world ended up hearing it, or we wish we had the paycheck that was supposed to come from it.
Either or.
They're different.
You wish that it ended up in the world as a song that was released.
It's like scary to say, but first times I ever heard like an artist sing anything I've written, I think it was literally like my second or third, like it was about to be a cut. It didn't end up being one. Rihanna, like
I fucking knew you were gonna say Rihanna. I don't know why I knew, just like in your eyes.
And every day since for like 10 years, I've been trying to get her to sing something.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So one of these days.
Oh, wow. That's so wild that you said Rihanna. I thought that I was just making that up in my head, but I was like, I know it's going to be, because it's something
That's
that
so funny.
It could have happened so long ago, but it's still technically, well, who knows? That's awesome.
Maybe one day.
What were you going to say, Nate?
I was going to say I wrote a song with Taylor Parks.
Oh my God.
And Justin cut it, and it was so sick. It was really special. It's like a really special song, just acoustic guitar, and like the lyrics and melodies are crazy. And
You didn't make it? Dang.
Do you know what like era it was supposed to be?
No, this was for the last record, which was also more annoying because the deluxe version had 20 songs.
There's so many songs. Yeah.
Like, I don't know why they're holding it back. Maybe there's a plan for it or something, but
Saving it.
it was such a good song. I'm so proud of it. We'll see what happens.
I mean, it got cut. That's awesome. I mean, I would die to hear that in Justin's voice.
Yeah. Pretty special.
Wrabel, if you have any.
There's 2 songs that did come out with artists, but I still feel like they were the biggest letdowns of my life because they're like my favorite songs, and then an artist took them, ruined them, and then they didn't do anything.
Oh.
When I was not able to put them out. And then the other one is like sort of basically I lived in this like shithole apartment for like 8 years. It was rent controlled, and then I was meant to have this big cut with like Popstar plus like Popstar DJ when like EDM was like still at the pinnacle. And I moved into this apartment like that was like 150% higher rent. Like I was like, this is my fucking jam. Like I'm gonna have this song. It's gonna be the biggest song I've ever had. After like 2 months, the DJ was like, I just can't find the groove.
Oh.
And I'm like, you're a DJ, find the groove. That's your job.
I'm pretty sure it's four
on the floor.
Do you have splice? Can you just...
But the one that like really like stands out, and it's a story that I've always thought of, is like when I really like first got started, I made my first trip to Nashville with she's like my sister now, a girl called Jamie Floyd. I wrote this song called After You, and her plugger emailed us like 2 days later and was like, it's on hold for Lady A. And this was like right after Need You Now, Lady A.
Yeah.
And I started sobbing. I called my mom. I was like, Mom, I'm going to buy you a house. Like, this is it. Like, oh my God. Like, I can't believe it. And it was a good song. It was like, I'm not running after you because there's an after you. Which is like, now I'm like, we could have maybe done better. But
I like that.
It had the piano lick. It had a bridge. And like, of course, it never ever came out. They never even cut it. And then I later learned that they put like 350 songs on hold. I didn't know what a hold meant. I didn't know that hold meant like, we couldn't listen to the full song. But we really liked the intro.
Yeah.
And I literally thought that my life, like I very literally thought that my life was going to change. Like I was like crying, and I was like, oh my God, I made it.
You still made it. You made it in just a different path.
Oh my God. This has been so great, guys. I'm so glad that everyone was able to like come here all at the same time and do this. If you guys want to be on the podcast at any other point later down the line, I would absolutely love to have any of you back. Thank you so much, Delacey, Wrabel, and Nate for joining the podcast and becoming official main pod girls.
Hey.
Who was your favorite?
Wait, what? I'll plead the fifth. No, I'm just kidding. It was me. Yeah. I'm my favorite person on this podcast.
Yeah.
Please stream Wrabel's EP, Chapter of Me, and Delacey's new album, The Girl Has a Dream. Thank you guys so much for coming on once again. Thank you to Noah for the theme music, and make sure to rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on now, and we'll see you next time.